Hello, my name is Kesari Naidu and I'm one of the cardiac rehab supervisors here at Toronto Rehab. Today we're going to be talking about exercise and cold weather. With winter approaching, many of you may wish to continue enjoying your exercise outdoors and should be able to do so with no problems. However, when it comes to cold weather, we have certain precautions that we want you to take and understand certain things in order to make sure that your exercise is done safely outdoors. So today, by the end of today's information session, you're going to understand the body's reaction to cold and other winter hazardous conditions that exist. We're going to teach you what temperature it is safe to do your exercise outdoors in, and when it falls beyond those temperatures, we will give you alternatives of how to carry out your exercise. Understanding how to dress appropriately for exercising in cold weather. And for those of you who are not interested in doing your exercise outdoors, what are some alternatives that exist out there for you to make sure that you get your 5 times a week in of exercise? So let's start by talking about the body's reaction to cold. Specifically, how does cold affect our cardiovascular system, meaning our heart and our lungs? When our body temperature falls, the blood vessels under our skin constrict. And when that constriction occurs, two things particularly happen. One is that the blood is shunted from the surface of our skin to our organs. This is our body's way of ensuring that the most important parts of our body are kept warm. The other thing that happens is that particular constriction of blood vessels increase our blood pressure, therefore increasing the workload on our heart. The blood has to work against a higher resistance in our vessels in order to get the blood where it needs to go. This particular impact on the cardiovascular system can affect those of you who experience angina or shortness of breath. So those of you who do experience this are more susceptible in the cold weather to have angina. The coronary vessels can also constrict and cause angina for those of you who can breathe in cold air. When that cold air hits the back of our throat, more vessels can constrict, causing more workload on the heart, therefore causing more apt for you to have angina. So this is why we want to pay close attention to the precautions and making sure that it's safe for you to exercise outdoors. Other hazardous conditions that exist when you're exercising outdoors that you need to be aware of are things like snow-covered and icy surfaces. We don't want you exercising through heavy snow and walking through that. That will increase the intensity of the walk, and the icy surfaces can increase the possibility of you falling and injuring yourself. So do make sure that your paths are cleared and there's not a lot of snow going through. Headwinds are another factor that we need to pay attention to. Headwinds can definitely make the temperature outside colder and can increase the amount of energy we have to exert to do our exercise prescription. So please pay close attention to that before heading out. Rain and wet snow are things we don't want you going outdoors with. Rain and wet snow decrease your body's temperature. Although the temperature outdoors may be okay, your body's temperature will start to decrease if you are wet. Sunshine to overcast. Often in the wintertime, temperatures can rise with the sunshine that's out there, and it can be quite pleasant to be exercising outdoors with that. But with cold weather in the winters, overcast can come in quite quickly and can be coming in unexpectedly. An overcast sky can decrease the temperature outdoors by up to 7 degrees Celsius. So one of the things that you want to pay attention to with respect to your exercise route is make sure that the route is short out and back. Maybe a quarter mile out, a quarter mile back, and repeat that. Instead of doing a whole circular long route around where if the temperature starts to fall and you need to head back, you've got a long route to head back. So make a short out and back route to avoid that particular problem. You may also want to take with you a cell phone, a token, subway token, or a bus ticket, and some cash, just in case you run into problems when you're out there. Dehydration is another thing you want to pay close attention to. We often remember this quite effectively in the summer months and hydrate well and drink water as appropriately, but we tend to forget it in the cold winter months. But it's just as important. We are perspiring and we're losing that water and fluid. So make sure that you take in water when you head out and you take in water when you head back. Temperature is now what we want to talk about with respect to not only the air temperature, but also the wind chill. Those two in combination will dictate whether it's safe for you to head outside or not. The bottom line number that we want you to remember is minus 10 degrees Celsius. If it is colder than this, then we don't advise you to exercise outdoors. In the Fahrenheit, that's 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? So remember that even if it's minus 9 or minus 10 and you're okay to head outdoors, that sunshine to overcast effect can drop you into an unsafe environment. So pay close attention to what the temperature is. You can find out the temperature at the time you go out for your walk, either on your weather network channels on your television or on your radio stations. Try not to look at the temperature 2 or 3 hours ahead of your walk. Take a look at it just before you head out and make appropriate changes as necessary. With all the other factors, the temperature, the icy and wet and cold conditions are all taken into effect. Now let's pay close attention to what clothing you need to wear when you're exercising outdoors. What we want to really pay attention to is making sure you're exercising outdoors with layers of clothing. So you're not heading outdoors with a big parka or a big coat as if you're going out in your car to the grocery store. Layers are particularly important because it allows us to insulate and prevent heat loss. It allows us to be able to open vents and open zippers and take a layer off if we get overheated. With big parkas and big coats, we don't have that option if we do get a little overheated. If we decide to take off that coat, you're going to be too cold and run into problems. Layers should also be open and closed types of weaves, and we'll get into that in a little bit. As well as an important type of material that we want close to the skin is a material called polypropylene. We'll talk about that more in a minute. We also want to pay attention to our head, our face, our hands, and our feet, because this is other areas where we can have a lot of heat loss. So we'll get to talk specifically about what to do in those cases. So let's talk about the layers of clothing. The first layer that you want to pay attention to is the layer closest to the skin. That is your first layer. This particular layer should be a ribbed undershirt made of this type of material, man-made material called polypropylene, or a wool silk cotton blend. These particular types of materials help to wick away wet or sweat from the surface of our skin. That wetness or sweat can continue to drop our body temperature. So if we have a material that can wick that away and keep us dry, then we are more apt to be safe outdoors. Try not to wear 100% cotton against your skin, because this particular material holds the wetness and keeps us cold and wet. So this polypropylene type of material you can find at most sports stores now, and some brand names may be Lifa or Combi. So look for those particular ones, or talk to the sales representatives in the sports stores. They're very well aware of these particular materials. You can get this particular material in an undershirt as well as in pants, particularly on the colder days for your pants. So that is your first layer. The first layer is designed to specifically keep us dry. The second layer is designed specifically to trap the actual warm air and keep it close to us. This particular type of layer is simply a thin, loosely woven sweater made of wool, preferably. And that particular layer is to trap that warm air. The third layer is something like a sweat top, or a synthetic blend, cotton wool blend, like a tracksuit jacket or something like that. That particular one is to keep the wind chill away from our from our skin and our body. So that third layer is important. In the warmer type of temperatures, this particular layer could be eliminated if it is a little bit warmer out there. But in the colder temperatures, closer to the minus 10 degrees, keep this third layer intact. The fourth layer, the outermost layer, is there to protect you against wind, rain, and snow. So wear wind and water resistant jacket and pants. So these particular pants can be worn over that polypropylene layer, the first layer. Okay? As we're using that particular type of legs motion, our legs tend to be kept warm, but make sure that you have some water resistant pants as well to keep you dry. Beyond the layers, we want to make sure that our head and our hands are kept warm as well. So wear a hat. As you know, a lot of our heat is lost by our hat. Our mothers were right back in the day when they said don't leave the house without wearing a hat. And make sure that you can wear a hat. You can also think of wearing a balaclava as well. That can help to protect your nose and your mouth at the same time. And those of you, when they take in that cold air and it affects or causes angina for you, that balaclava or scarf over your head and your mouth and nose will help to warm the air before it gets into your system to avoid that constriction of blood vessels. Mittens are preferable over gloves if you're able, as it keeps your fingers closer together and keeps heat generated towards each other. So try to avoid wearing gloves if you can. What do you wear on your feet? We don't want you wearing the big, heavy winter boots. The big, heavy winter boots actually give more intense on your exercise and makes it harder for you to carry out your prescription. So we advise you to wear your usual running shoes. Remember, we're advising you to walk outdoors without a lot of snow on the ground or icy surfaces. So your running shoes should be fine to wear throughout your exercise. The shoes may actually get wet, but they will be able to dry. And if you're wearing running shoes that we're recommending for you, that the material would dry pretty quickly. So what happens when it's not safe to exercise outdoors? When it's colder than -10 degrees Celsius, or it's raining, or it's wet snow outdoors? Few options for you. One is take a rest day. Those days hopefully won't be a lot in a row, and although we're only asking you to exercise 5 times a week, take that as your rest day and go out the following day. Other options exist for you, not only for those of you who are using it as an alternative to exercising outdoors for that particular week, but those of you who decide not to exercise outdoors in the winter at all, here are some other alternatives for you. Mall walk programs. You might have known that a lot of the malls in the city and in your area are open earlier in the morning or after hours and throughout the day to carry out your exercise in the actual mall. Many have mall walk programs and clubs. You have to pay a small fee. Most are free. People go in and the information desk will often have a map laid out for you that the route is actually measured for you. Here at the center in our lobby, you can find all the mall maps for the GTA area, and volunteers from our program have actually gone out and measured the route, and it's on this particular map that allows you to walk in a certain direction and know what distance you're covering. It's a wonderful alternative. More alternatives for indoor exercise are things like home equipment. Treadmills, stationary bicycles are a great way of exercising, alternative exercise than going out in the cold weather. If you're interested in purchasing home equipment, talk to your exercise supervisor about what to look for. We have some information packages that we can give you to really make it a conscious consumer choice when you go out to the stores, because it can be overwhelming. Other people may join a gym, and they have indoor tracks, or they have the treadmills or stationary bikes as well. It's important to think about this ahead of time and to have your plan of action done so that you're not stuck when the winter months come and you've got your actual plan of action and you're not decreasing the amount of exercise you're doing in a week. Talk to your exercise supervisor if you're struggling with this particular issue. So in summary, we advise you not to exercise outdoors if the temperature is below -10 degrees Celsius. And remember, this is including the wind chill. So when you're listening to the radio, listen for the inclusion of the wind chill. Wear layers of clothing. Remember, 4 layers, and each layer plays a particular role. Layer 1 is to protect you from wetness. Layer 2 is to trap warm air. Layer 3 is to protect you from the wind chill, and layer 4 is to keep you dry. Plan a short out and back course, especially for those times where it's sunshine going to overcast. And make sure that somebody is aware that you're heading out for your exercise, and maybe take a cell phone or a subway token with you in case you run into problems. At all else, if you're running into problems or you're not sure what to do when you're out there, is slow your pace down. Always use your rating of perceived exertion and your exercise heart rate as guidelines of whether or not you should be exercising outdoors or whether or not you should be committing to your actual prescribed pace. And lastly, remember hydration. Drink water before you head out and drink water when you come back, because we lose just as much water when we're exercising in cold weather as when we exercise in hot weather. So have a safe and wonderful winter season, and if you have any questions more about the layers of clothing or indoor alternatives for exercise, make sure that you talk to your exercise supervisor. Thank you.